Welcome to What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology. In each episode, we will interview professional musicians, conductors, composers, and music educators about their musical lives. You can watch the video or listen as a podcast. Go to bandology.ca for all the details. What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology. Today we have Dylan Rook Maddix, a professor of music at Cambrian College in Sudbury, Ontario, where he conducts the wind ensemble, teaches music theory, and serves as the head of winds and brass. He also teaches conducting at Laurentian University. On top of all that, he maintains an active career as a sought-after adjudicator, conductor, clinician, and performer across Canada. Dylan is clearly a very busy person, and we were able to get a hold of him for this interview. So without further ado, here's Dylan Rook Maddix. What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology. So, the first instrument that you learned, was it the trumpet? Is there something that came before the trumpet?
Well, there's not any kind of instrument, so to speak, that came before. I sang in elementary school choir, like all of my years in choir, or in elementary school rather, and I was the only guy. And then it came time to pick an instrument. I'm from Prince Edward Island originally. In that system, you have to test into the band programs. Is this note higher? Is this note lower? And I think it's a fluke, really. I don't know how I did it, but I ended up getting it. And then I ended up picking saxophone as my first instrument, horn, and then trumpet. And then the only one that was left was trumpet, so I played the trumpet.
I also got my third pick.
It works out.
Yeah. When you started with the choir, what year would that have been? Like what grade?
I think we start choir in grade 4.
And that was through the school? It wasn't just like a voluntary outside of school thing?
It was through school, and then at some point it does become voluntary. Yeah, so I joined for that reason. For some reason, I don't know what it was. I don't have any music in my family, any professional music or anything like that. But there was something there that drew me towards it. I really enjoyed my teacher, and she's still a wonderful friend, Heather Colson, who I try to get together with once a year, and she's my elementary teacher. So she was a really wonderful person to kind of start my musical journey.
So then after choosing the trumpet, and this is still like in grade school, right? Like elementary school?
Yeah, this is, you have to kind of make your choice the summer of grade 6, because they send you to beginner band camp.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we do it's kind of like a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing, where, you learn hot cross buns, you learn Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then the trumpets get to show off. The students, they go ba 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 da da do ba ba ba, and they build it up by thirds, and then the trumpet teachers show off and play the melody over top of that. Nice. But yeah, and still to this day, my mother asks for this song. It's like, I can play anything, but you really still want to hear this. Okay, great. But yeah, so it's the summer grade 6 that you have to decide, and then from there you go on to a different school, junior high, which for me was Summerside Intermediate.
Through high school and after high school, what made you want to study it in post-secondary?
Well, I'll try to be as efficient as possible with this answer, but like I said, no one in my family was musical. There's no examples of any professional musicians in my family, and or kind of their friend circles, either my parents' friend circles. I did have a number of cousins that, anytime there's a party or anything, they would bring instruments. So I had that kind of inspiration, but I remember coming to my parents with a list of occupations I wanted to do, and one of them was like a farmer, and they said, no, you won't make enough money. And then one of them was, the family business is actually custom picture framing, which my grandfather still is in Toronto, but my dad was doing in PEI, and so I said, I want to do that. Same thing. Couldn't do it. So then eventually my junior high band teacher was someone is my biggest hero in my life. And so I said, I want to be a music teacher. And then my parents said, yeah, because I have a teacher in my family. One of my aunts is a teacher, and they have a pension and everything. So so I got the approval from my parents. So that was kind of grade 8. I was starting to think about stuff like that. But then the big moment I think, where I realized why I wanted to go into music. I didn't know if it was going to be performance or whatever, but I was in New York for a band festival, and it was the Festivals of Music in New York, and we were playing in this beautiful hall in New Jersey, Newark, and we did the whole band festival thing, and we played, and then the adjudicator came up, who happened to be, I didn't know who he was at the time, but his name's Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser, and he's the keynote for next year's Ontario Music Educator conference. So it turns out he's a real big deal, and I had no idea, and I was just a little grade 10 kid. But we were playing O Magnum Mysterium by Morton Lawrenson, arranged by H. Robert Reynolds, and it's a beautiful choral piece. And if you weren't moved by a bad playing of this piece, there's something wrong with you. So, but it's a really beautiful piece, and he wanted to work on the big moment. So we ended up doing that. And instead of telling us very technical things and we have to be listening for this, he just told us to listen and to think about someone we love at this exact moment. So everyone, be it someone who's alive or someone who's not. So I ended up thinking about my grandma. And I just remember we got to this big moment and everyone was like crying and there was chills and it was in tune and it was musical and it was all these wonderful things. And the moment that I realized what music can do for a student, even someone in grade 10, was a magical thing. All the stuff that goes on in here comes out of my instrument. And ever since that real moment, I kind of decided, I want to do something in music.
So then you went to Mount Allison, right, for your undergrad?
Mount Allison is a comprehensive. It's a Bachelor of Music degree. I like to say it's kind of whatever you make it is what it is there. I didn't think of these things when I was in high school, and it turns out it was the best possible place for me. When I was there, and this might be a point for people who are listening, I wanted to be an orchestral trumpet player was my first thing. Then I wanted to be a choral conductor, and then I wanted to be a trumpet soloist. Oh, and then I wanted to be a wind conductor. And then I think I went back to trumpet soloist again. So within that time at Mount Allison, my musical mind didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Yeah, so it's a really great program. I went there because at the time it was the only place that had a full-time trumpet professor. All the other universities had part-time people, and they either played with Symphony Nova Scotia or something like that. So I studied with now Dr. Alan Klaus. At the time, he was very young and was not a doctor. Yeah, so I spent 3 years with him, and then after that, Dr. Linda Pierce came in, and she is actually a bass trombonist, but a really fantastic pedagogue. So yeah, so I had a wonderful time with both Alan and Linda, which was great. And then that's where I really discovered the whole conducting thing. I was very lucky that not many people wanted to conduct, so there was all of these things for me to do. So ever since my first year, I was I had my own church choir for most of my time there. I was doing the university musicals. I had the university pep band, which is funny in Canada, but so we were playing at football games. I was the assistant for the symphonic band and all that stuff. So it was a really great place. If you had an interest, generally you were supported in that interest. So it was perfect for me because I kept changing my mind so much, and I'm a bit of a builder. So if I have an idea, I just I'll go with it. So and that was supported at Mount A. So that was really, really great.
Awesome. And then that brought you to U of T, or was there some time in between?
Well, there was a time that I had to decide if I was going to go do a master's in conducting or if I was going to go do a master's in trumpet performance. For 2 years, I was the conducting fellow with the Dennis Wick Canadian Wind Orchestra, one of Canada's 2 national honor ensembles, and the Canadian Wind Orchestra has the conducting fellowship for undergraduate students. So when I was in my 3rd and my 4th year, I think, I was a conducting fellow with them. So I got to work with Dr. Mark Hopkins from Acadia University and Dr. Gillian McKay from the University of Toronto. So I remember one time having a chat with Dr. McKay and saying, I want to come do my master's in conducting with you at U of T. And she just looked at me in the eyes and she said, no. At the time, I was very upset about it, but her reasoning was you need to become the best musician you can be on your instrument before you try to tell other people how to do that in an ensemble. So I ended up going to U of T for my master's in trumpet performance. And in that first year at U of T, I actually didn't conduct at all. Like I just totally focused on trumpet. And it wasn't until my second year that I started doing stuff around the city and I was taking graduate wind courses, but yeah, so that's how that kind of happened. I guess I hadn't really decided if I was going into wind conducting.
So then just going chronologically after U of T, so it was a Master's of Music in performance, trumpet performance, or?
Yep, it was in trumpet performance. I also took all of the graduate conducting classes. So there's a couple in conducting. There's a history of the wind band course, those kind of things. Trumpet-wise, I studied with Jim Sprague, who's the second trumpet in the Toronto Symphony, and he was, for me, perfect teacher. Not only as a trumpet player, but as a conductor, has shown me what it takes to be a truly amazing section player, and the passion that can go into that. Not just focusing on first trumpets and all that stuff, or first flute, because everyone gets so obsessed, but the importance of someone who really is in that supportive role and is there to make kind of everyone else look better. His mindset on it and his philosophy on it is something that we can all kind of inherit, because often the ego, especially for us trumpet playing conductors, often the ego takes over. So just remembering that it's not about you is a good thing. So that was really great. And then, I did chamber stuff with all the other brass faculty. Anita McAllister is someone else who I worked with a lot at U of T, and through the Hannaford Youth Brass Program. I helped out with it, and I played in it my first year of my master's. But yeah, so I did that, and then studied conducting with Jillian McKay. And then other than that, I did every possible conducting symposium I could get my hands on.
So then after that, what brought you to Cambrian? Obviously, there's a couple of years in between the end of U of T and where you are now.
During at U of T, and then after, for 4 years, I worked as a freelance trumpet player in Toronto and conductor. So as a trumpet player, I was doing just anytime you wanted to pay me money, I would play. I played a lot at Casa Loma with the Toronto Concert Orchestra and the late Carrie Stratton, which was kind of initiation by fire. But it was a really wonderful professional experience for me. Most recently, I've started doing stuff like video games live at Massey Hall, those kind of things. Roger Hodgson this year I played with. He's the lead singer from Supertramp. So I do a lot of these kind of random gigs. I started a lot of my own stuff. So I had a brass trio called the Vox Aris Trio, which is still going, just without me. We toured a lot, did some educational concerts, those kind of things. And then the biggest thing that I started directly after my master's was called the Toronto Winds, which was a professional wind ensemble in Toronto, a very small one. So I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then, of course, teaching has always been a big part. And then other than that, my band adjudicating clinics where I met you has also been a giant part of my career. For me to get to Cambrian, it was strange because there was a job posting for the head of winds and brass, and I remember it said you had to teach theory, and I was kind of like, oh no, because theory is not my strongest. Or it wasn't. It is now, but it wasn't. So I saw this job posting. I said, what the heck? So I applied for it, and I got asked to do an interview. I did the interview, and then by the end of the summer, they offered me the job. It was either a week or like 2 weeks before classes started. And I had,
so notice.
Yeah, so it was very exciting. So I moved up here and was like teaching, and my wife is a professional harpist, so she was still living in Toronto. And then officially we moved up in November, and then we've been here ever since. So I just finished my second year at the college, and I'm at the university now as well, teaching conducting. So it's been really great.
Just to jump back quickly to adjudicating, you still adjudicate for many festivals. I mean, there's none happening currently, but when you are adjudicating, I've always been curious, like, what's the difference between a silver level or a gold level band, in your opinion?
I think lots of things, and this is going to be different for everyone you talk to. I think where we all agree, because I ask this question quite a bit too to my colleagues, But where we all agree is rhythm's really important. And if rhythm's not there, you're not going to get the gold, correct notes. So foundationally, like the actual like written music part is very important. But beyond that, a sense of we're all aiming for the same goal. Hearing students have kind of an idea of where the phrase is going, musical ideas, these kind of things, the stuff that makes us send a tear down our face. Those kind of things for me are kind of like, if we're talking about like the highest standard that I'm looking for, we're looking for all the correct musical things, but also the ability to move both me as an adjudicator and your audience. I mean, there's one horrible story that follows me around where I was adjudicating in Collingwood 2 years ago, I think, and it was a band from Aurelia that played. I ended up putting my pencil down and just listening because it was just really amazing and beautiful. And I ended up telling them this in the clinic that they made me cry. And we had a great clinic. And then I got home after that festival. Someone sent me an article from Aurelia newspaper, and it was "Band Makes Adjudicator Cry." Like I made it into the newspaper, so that was great. But anyway, a more advanced concept of musical ideas is kind of what will get you that platinum.
Who are some like very major influences or mentors in your life? You talked about your elementary school teacher who you're still in contact with, and obviously Dr. Mark Hopkins and Julian McKay.
I think everyone who's kind of inspired me, I'm very lucky that they've all been my teachers. So certainly, Mrs. Colson, but also someone who I'm actually interviewing for my podcast this year is my junior high band teacher, Peter Gallant. And he was kind of the first person that I saw like me in that chair kind of thing. He just had so much fun in class, and I said, this guy gets paid to do this. This is crazy. I really wanted to do that. So he's been a huge influence for me. And then I think probably one of my biggest early influences, Mark Ramsey, who was my high school band teacher, who is now Dr. Mark Ramsey, who just as of like a couple weeks ago was named the choral coordinator at Western University. So he was my high school teacher and gave me very early conducting opportunities. Is someone who really showed me how to be a professional and just how to act, the things to do. He's amazingly musical and giving. So he's been probably one of the biggest influences in my musical life. And I was just lucky. Like, who was I to know at a grade 10 student that someday my teacher would be the head of choral studies at Western University? Like, that was just a total fluke. The other big influences, as you mentioned, Dr. McKay, who I've known since I was a grade 12 student. She was my honor band conductor. So once again, you never know who you're going to have in your life. So that's why you should be a good person at all times. But yeah, no, she's been an amazing influence and help and friend and colleague now to me. And it really goes beyond musical advice, how to be a good person. If your mentor is helping you become a better person, that's kind of how I know that they should be your mentor. Other than that, my high school trumpet teacher, Dan Santamon, who's not with us anymore, but he really instilled a very strong passion into like the trumpety kind of things, like obsessing over mouthpieces, those kind of things, and a passion for the instrument. And then other than that, I was actually going to mention this. Musically, I think I really looked up to like people like Jens Lindemann, and even your teacher, Guy. It was someone I looked up to for a very long time, be it the recordings or master classes I've got to play with them and those kind of things. Because I always wanted to be a trumpet soloist.
So you've already shared a couple anecdotes, certain things that have happened over the years, especially the Aurelia newspaper. I was just wondering if there was any other interesting anecdotes or career highlights you want to share, I don't know, that are funny or interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have one that I'll certainly share with you, but yeah, I'll just share this one. So it actually involves your former band teacher, Mr. Brian Vincent. So there was one day I was at home and I got a phone call from Brian. He was very excited. He had this job opportunity that he couldn't do that he's been doing. And he was the music consultant for the Netflix show Umbrella Academy. So he did the second or third episode. They're at the Glenn Gould School rehearsing like the string orchestra in the show. Anyway, so I guess he was like the conducting, like he helped the actor and stuff. And that was the final episode and he couldn't go do it. So Brian asked me if I was interested. And I said, absolutely. So anyway, I ended up going. I walk in and I'm the music coordinator. So basically anything musically that happens in that episode, like visually, I have to put people in the right place. If the bow is going the wrong way, I have to say those kind of things. If I have to, I'll work with the actor who's the orchestral conductor, he's not a conductor at all. He was a very nice guy. I can't remember his name. And the musicians start coming in, and the Netflix people tell me I have to start seating everyone. And I go up to this gentleman with a violin, and I say, the first violins will be there. And he's like, I know, I play in the Toronto Symphony. And it turns out they're all like Toronto Symphony opera ballet people, Toronto's top musicians. So then I felt real stupid. But anyway, so I seat everyone, all that stuff. And the day goes pretty smoothly. It was like a long day. Like, I don't know how those TV people do it, but if we complain about 8-hour days or whatever, they're there for like, I think it was like 5 a.m. till 2 a.m. So it comes time, they have to get a playback of that episode's music so that they can line it up with the professional recording. The actor obviously can't conduct, so he can't conduct this playback. So he had a stand-in conductor. Kind of looked like him, was an older gentleman, apparently could conduct and was supposed to be able to conduct. Turns out he can't conduct. So I had to conduct it. So I'm like in the curl of the curtain on stage, and I'm kind of like this in getting through. So I ended up getting to conduct all these really great musicians. This score from Jeff Russo, which was really cool. You can't plan for that. Like, you're not a kid going, I am going to be, for one episode, be a music coordinator for the Netflix show Umbrella Academy. Like, that's not something you put in. It just it's like stuff that happens because, hopefully you were a good person in your life and someone will recommend you for something. And that's why I always say you never know who's watching. I didn't know that could happen, but that's probably one of my most fun experiences I've had. And there's other things, like I played with Hogtown Brass, and we played on a pirate ship downtown. We went to the Toronto Island area. Like, fun gigs like that have always been exciting.
Yeah, so you never know what opportunities are going to come to you in the future. I think that brings us to advice for young musicians that are either trumpet players or somehow know that they want to be conductors one day, or just know that music is something that they want to continue.
I think if I'm giving advice to a young trumpet player or conductor of how to go forward, if you want to be a conductor, you need to conduct. So those opportunities don't come knocking on your door. So for me, it involved creating a lot. So if you want to conduct. From early undergrad, I was getting friends together and doing things, and it might not have ended up on stage at any point, but I was getting experience through those kind of things. So if you want to conduct, then put a little group together. If you want to do it, do it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. And I'm not going to say how young I am, but I'm quite young. And I was getting really tired of people telling me that I couldn't do something because I was not old enough or it wasn't blah, blah, blah. So I ended up just putting it together myself, and then after that, I get invited to do stuff. So both trumpet-wise and conducting, you can put a group together, be it a quintet or a trio or a jazz group or whatever it is, but as long as you have the initiative to do it. So I would start there before knocking on the door of the Toronto Symphony, being, can you give me an opportunity? Don't be afraid to create is what my advice would be.
Awesome. It's kind of hard to know what's happening next
Yeah.
In the world, but do you have any exciting plans coming up?
Well, right now, I think as every post-secondary teacher is dealing with, we're trying to figure out what is in store for us in the fall. So most of my time right now and what I'm looking forward to is how the fall is going to work at the two schools I teach at. And so I'm doing a lot of planning for those kind of things, and Zoom meetings every week to talk about possible scenarios that might happen, because no one has answers. But other than that, certainly, if you don't mind me making a shameless plug, my podcast is something I put a lot of time into. So that's the Band Room podcast, where you can find on any of your podcast apps, be it Apple Podcast or Stitcher or Spotify, any of those things. We're starting our second season this month, which is kind of crazy. So there's lots of great guests. I'm certainly looking forward to hopefully after Christmas when things might start up again. But other than that, I'm looking forward to my birthday tomorrow. But
what's your birthday tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, happy almost birthday.
Thank you. I'm happy that I could do this, and I'm really happy that all of you at Bandology are, making an effort to do something for, be it students or educators that look for resources. So it's really nice to see. And I'm excited that I could be a little piece of that.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing. You are the very first interview. Well, thank you for taking the time, and happy almost birthday.
Thanks, Megan.
Well, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too. Once again, a big thank you to Dylan for letting me interview him. I had a great time talking to him. And thanks to you, the listener, for taking the time to join us. If you liked what you heard, you can find out more about this series and our organization at bandology.ca, which features info about research, advocacy, and music education, and our Bandcamp and Play a Gig programs. Follow us on social media for more videos and performances on Instagram and Facebook. Once again, I'm your host, Megan Harton, and I'll see you next time. What's Your Forte? Presented by Bandology.